Hello, and welcome to the SEO segment of the Virtual DJ Expo 2020. My name is Jordan St. Jacques, and I'm going to be talking to you for the next 30 to 45 minutes about SEO in this age of COVID, and hopefully give you guys some knowledge to get ready as we come out of Covidia, as they say, in the spring of 2021. Now, obviously, a lot of you guys are hurting these days, and it's not even one segment or the other of the industry. You could say, well, the wedding guys have, taken the hits, excuse me, taken the hits worse than anybody, but at the same time, the DJs who have been working in the nightclubs, etc., they're not necessarily doing any better either, simply because of the fact that the nightclubs and bars are all shut down as well. So no matter where you point to in the industry, I'm pretty sure that you can make a case for pain everywhere. Now, of course, wedding revenues tend to be a little higher than your average nightclub DJ, but still, we're all hurting, and I think that it's important to realize that as a collective industry, none of us are necessarily doing well right now. I've heard of a couple of DJ companies, Pulse out of Philadelphia in particular, who have started to generate some revenue with respect to live streaming, etc. But let's face it, nobody is doing as well as they did in 2019 and previous years. A lot of multi-op operators out there are sitting there with gear in the warehouse, and if they happen to have COVID hit them as they had lease payments to make, then of course we feel their pain, and that's why, of course, DJ Times held on to wanting to do the DJ Expo as long as possible. Until they finally had to realize that it's just better to put off the in-person expo until 2021. Nevertheless, Jim and Steve and the rest of the guys over at Testa Communications are obviously worried about the state of the industry, and so they decided to put on this virtual DJ Expo for 2020. And there's a whole series of seminars this week that you guys should actually partake in. Okay, so when I talk about a return to normal, what am I talking about? All right, so in the last 10 days or so, we've received some news that a couple of respected American companies, number one, Pfizer, number two, Moderna, have actually announced vaccines with high rates of prevention. Right, so the Pfizer vaccine that first came out was apparently 90% effective. And the Moderna vaccine, which just came out in the last 48 hours, is apparently 94.5% effective. So we do have vaccines. They're working, right? They've gone through the trials, which is, of course, what's taken all year for those guys to get their butts in gear. But these vaccines do work, right? The problem now, of course, is they've got to, make billions of doses to pretty much cure the world, if you will. And that's of course going to take time. In North America, U.S. and Canada are tops at the list, of course, to get the first batches of vaccine dosages. So the point is that the industry is going to return to normal. I personally am predicting that it's going to start to return to normal in the spring. Now, when I say normal, I'm talking about start to return to normal. I mean, if you look at the restaurant industry, not everybody is going to just rush back into restaurants as soon as possible. It's going to be slow. It's just like, computers, right? There's early adopters, there's the people that hop in the middle, and then there's the stragglers that wait till the end. And it's going to be like that in every industry. So, you guys aren't going to, go from 0 weddings a weekend to start sending out, 5 systems a night all at once kind of thing. But there is going to be a return to revenue in 2021. So because of that, it's time for a digital footprint refresh. If you guys have not seriously spent this downtime taking a look at your digital footprint in all aspects and figuring out how you can come out of COVID that much better, then you haven't been using your time effectively. Hopefully, with this virtual DJ Expo from DJ Times, you guys will start to think about that. Maybe you can get a good month and a half of productivity in, over the Thanksgiving break, over the Christmas break, and really, maybe do some, work in January to come out of this thing in a much stronger position, so that you're ready, set up and ready to acquire gigs book gigs, and execute. Okay. Okay. So before we get into the talk today, well, this one here is about SEO in the age of COVID. I do, just want to take a little bit of housekeeping time and mention to you that as I've suggested that you all refresh your digital footprint, what the guys at DJ Times for the DJ Expo have been doing is actually making plans to make 2021 so much better. First of all, there's going to be a move. We've been at Harris for a few years now, and Harris is a great place. Got a nice pool in the center, all that stuff. Good buffets, everything like that. But let's face it, Harris is a little bit out of the way, right? Anybody who wants to go and experience the boardwalk in Atlantic City has had to take a cab, take an Uber, one of those, semi-regular buses that, says they come all the time but never does. And so there's that aspect of things, right? And so, what the lads at DJ Times have done is they've moved DJ Expo over to the Hard Rock for 2021, which is down on the boardwalk. It's very, great casino. It's, and it's a little bit more centrally located. So I think that, if you haven't been to the DJ Expo in the last few years, let's say, I think this is one of those years where it's going to be a really, really great show. There are people that come every year, I know, because I see some of them in the seminars that I speak at, and, they're always there and love to see all the regulars. But then, of course, there are DJs who only come once every 2 or 3 years, let's say, right? Because they've got their gear, they know what they're, maybe they're too, who knows, maybe they're too busy, or maybe they just can't get away because of family obligations. It's not for me to say. What is for me to say, though, is that 2021 is going to be a special DJ Expo, and I recommend that you all come. Right, Jim and myself are planning some great seminars, a lot of content. So the buying the educational, I don't know what the actual pass is called, the seminar pass or the educational pass, or full pass, if you will. But I would recommend, if you haven't been in a couple of years, it's time to come back. Okay. So, anyways. My name is, like I said before, my name is Jordan St. Jacques. I've been speaking at the DJ Expo for, I think, 4 years now. And it's either 3 years or 4 years, I can't remember. But I'm a regular. I used to be a DJ myself, so I understand the business quite clearly. But I moved on to tech a number of years ago when I left the DJ world and got into promotions. And, for me, the revolution to tech was when I was promoting I was promoting concerts and things like that. And in 2004, I was the first guy in the world to take a MySpace profile over 1 million friends and use it to actually sell concert and nightclub tickets. Back then, it was a new thing, of course, and as soon as the world realized the power of social media, a lot of people caught up to me and even surpassed me. It was fun back then because I was in a little bit of a battle with somebody named Tila Tequila to have the biggest profile, and I was the first one to get to 1 million. But then 2 weeks later, she surpassed me, and then of course, she became famous, and the rest is history, kind of thing, right? And I was left in the dust, sort of thing. But I had my early successes, and I continued that work all the way up to 2013 when I left the concert business and entered the digital world full time. Since then, I've been running an agency called Digitera, and if you want to check it out, it's digitera.agency. No .coms or .cas or anything like that. It's just digitera.agency, spelled Digitera. Anyways, glad to be here, and let's get into some content. So before I start getting into the new and fresh content, let me just remind you guys the big 5 pillars of digital marketing. Okay, there's web, there's search, there's social, there's email, and there's blast. Okay, and everything else within digital marketing can be put in one of those 5 categories. All right. And so we'll talk about a few things today, mostly about search. My second seminar, which is going to be broadcast on Thursday, deals more with social, so I'll skip over social today. But today is all about search, okay? But before I get into the new exciting stuff like Google's new Core Web Vitals, etc., etc., I do want to say that you guys should all be refreshing your website especially while we're in COVID time. A lot of you guys don't have very good websites out there, and there are some of you that have made efforts to improve over the years. But I know a website refresh, even a redo, can be a fair bit of money, and no one wants to spend money these days. But there's no reason why you can't, add sections. Okay, so one of the things that we'll talk about a little later on in this time slot is that you guys should be adjusting most of the content on your site to actually be COVID specific, okay? So if you have for example, on your website, if you have an FAQ section, right, then put in a new section, right? And you can do different sections of FAQ all the time, right? That's the way I do it on my site. And it keeps things organized, right? I'll have different FAQ sections for different pages. And instead of having a one-size-fits-all FAQ page, what I'll do is I'll actually insert an FAQ widget in the bottom of almost every page. And that way it keeps things fresh and relevant. And of course, I still have my main FAQ page. But to have FAQ sections allows people easy access, right? And sometimes it's redundant access, which anybody who's listened to some of my DJ Expo talks before knows that I love redundancy, right? Don't assume that every single user to your site is smart. They're not, right? And so you have to assume that they're dumb. It's just that simple. And sorry to be so drastically blunt with my language, but it's true. You just can't, somebody could be, a physics professor or something like that and still not know how to navigate a website properly. So for you to put in redundant links as much as possible, or redundant content as much as possible, is a great thing. So that's one of the areas that you can stick in redundant content, which is COVID-specific FAQ sections, right? You put that on your contact page, you put that on your about page, maybe even some sort of a thing on the home page. My reputation for not wanting to clutter the home page is quite well known, but still, to have a little button in there saying read up about our COVID specific reactions or something like that, like how we're reacting to COVID, is not a bad idea at all. Okay, so definitely you guys should be thinking about some sort of website refresh, and it's not too late. You guys can get that done between now and say the middle of January, right? Which is when things are going to start popping off again. I don't know if January is going to be safe. So all the usual bridal shows that occur in January. I mean, I've actually had some of my my co-op high school students doing research into the bridal show industry in this time, and almost every bridal show website that we've come across, unfortunately, they excuse me. Unfortunately, they've canceled everything in January, and there's a lot of February cancellations as well. I don't really see anybody keeping anything specific up online except for March or even April. So I think there's a little bit of time for you to refresh your website and not necessarily have to meet the usual January deadline of bridal shows. So that's something, okay? So definitely think about a website refresh. Listen, even if you want to pick up a little bit of WordPress knowledge on your own, or if you're using a website builder like Wix or Squarespace or even the Shopify one, you can, this is something that, if you have a little bit of knowledge of your own, that you can do yourself. And, if you screw it up, well, then just give me a call and I'll be your emergency doctor or something. But definitely one way or another, whether you have a web person or whether you need to hire a web person, or whether you're going to do it yourself, definitely think about a website refresh, okay? And my first recommendation within that refresh is COVID-specific FAQs, all right? FAQs are highly indexed by Google, and, other than blog entries, which of course take a little bit more effort, FAQs will actually get a lot of good content out there. Okay, so let's get to something really exciting that has happened in 2020. It's something new that Google has put out, and it's called Core Web Vitals. Okay, anybody who's paying attention to SEO must read up on Core Web Vitals. All right, and Core Web Vitals it's all right. So harking back to a few years ago when I first talked at DJ Expo, I had mentioned to you guys, and I mention to it every year, that there's anywhere between 200 to 300 ranking signals that Google measures at any one time. I mean, it could even be more than 300 for all I know. Nobody really knows for sure, right? Unless you actually are a Google employee and have signed the NDA and all that kind of stuff, signed your life away. But so all these different signals, they're all of a they're all like really, really tiny aspects. Like, for example, did you upload new pictures to your Google My Business page? What's your latest blog entry? What's the timestamp on it? I mean, all these little, details that carry minutia, and a very, very tiny weight within the overall ranking algorithm that Google has. That they're all important, of course, and that's why you pay an SEO person, unless you know how to do it yourself and you have the time. The thing is, though, is that it's been very disjointed, even for us technical people. It's been a very disjointed process. So it's been confusing at times, right? When you're taking a look at some of these aspects, what's important, what's not, what can I cut corners on, so that I'm not paying like $3,000 a month for an SEO person, that kind of thing. So what Core Web Vitals is an effort to make things a little easier to understand, okay? And we're not talking about offsite factors well, actually we are talking about a little bit of offsite factors, but we'll get to that in a second. But for the most part, we're just talking about websites. That's why it's called Core Web Vitals, okay? So there's 3 categories: loading, interactivity, and user stability. I'm going to say that again because it's important to know. Even if you don't do this stuff yourself, it's important to know so that whoever your SEO person is you can actually have a conversation with them, okay? Loading, interactivity, and user stability. All right? Very, very important 3. I'm going to say it a third time. Loading, interactivity, and user stability, okay? Loading is largest contentful paint, and that's kind of a technical term, so I'm going to break it down very simply. Your site's got to load within 2.5 seconds on mobile and on the website. Okay, it's got to load fast. Now, let's say you go to Google's page speed tool, right? Page speed test tool. All right. When you stick in your URL, it'll measure it from both a desktop point of view and a mobile point of view. You need to pay attention to both sections. All right. If you don't, you're just hurting yourself. All right. Interactivity means first input delay. How long does that take? And that should be under 0.1 of a second. All right. And then the last one, user stability, right? Essentially what we're talking about here when we talk about user stability is cumulative layout shift, right? That means things like does it propagate on mobile as well as it does on a desktop, right? One of the biggest errors that I see all the time, in fact, I even make this error sometimes myself, is you've got some text and it looks great on a mobile device. Sorry, it looks great on your desktop, but then when you look at it on a mobile device, that text spills off the screen. Fortunately, most WordPress themes are properly formatted for responsiveness, for mobile responsiveness. So you don't really have to worry about this too much, but it depends on the author of the theme that you buy, right? If that author hasn't configured for mobile responsiveness, or if he's not updating his or her theme, right, that's a problem, and you can fail on user stability sometimes like that, okay? Now, how to measure, right? How to measure Core Web Vitals. There is no extra tool as per se, like there's no, like, you know, you have how you have Google Search Console and you have Google Analytics and things like that. There's no new tool for Core Web Vitals, right? What Google has done though is what they've embedded Core Web Vitals measurement within all of their popular tools. So it's kind of like an addition to Google Search Console. It's going to be an addition to Google Analytics, etc., etc. Okay, so pay attention, especially in Search Console right now. They've got a new section in there called Core Web Vitals. So you can actually go in there and start to see how they're measuring it, right? Core Web Vitals is not meant to replace those 200 to 300 ranking signals. What it is designed to do is help you focus on the most important aspects. I mean, obviously, Google's not going to send you their ranking formulas tomorrow. That's something that they keep highly, highly guarded. It's a top secret. So the thing is that with Core Web Vitals, what they're doing is they're broadcasting to all of us that the aspects that are measured within Core Web Vitals are very, very important, more important than the other ranking signals. You got to remember, Google wants organic experience, right? They want to give results in their search engines that people want to consume, right? It does nothing for Google if they rank a site on page 1 for a particular keyword that ends up being a slow-loading site, propagates horrible on mobile, things like that. It makes Google look bad, right? And so what they do is they pay attention to these things and they reward you for a site that, you know, measures up to their Core Web Vitals and other ranking signals as well, right? You have to know that's what's in Google's heart. That's what's in their spirit. They want their users, you know, to have higher rankings if those websites go out of their way to offer a pleasing organic experience to their users, right? So if you have a fast loading site, if it looks good on mobile, if it's interactive without problems, I mean, you've cleaned up those JavaScript errors that can sometimes pop up, you know, and you know, the stability of your user experience is good, right? Google is going to reward you. They're going to give you a higher ranking, okay? Now, there is one Chrome extension for those of you who are Chrome lovers, right? It's called the Web Vitals Chrome extension. You may want to pay attention to that because it'll help you pick out errors. Now, if your web development skills are lacking, right, then simply recommend that whoever does your website actually downloads the Web Vitals Chrome extension and is paying attention to it at least once a week, okay? So I know that, you know, obviously you know, once you guys will hire somebody for a website, most web developers will disappear just as soon as the site is over, right? What you need to do is make sure that whoever does your website is sticking around and has some sort of, even if it's just like an automated maintenance measurement, that kind of thing. You know, make sure that whoever does your website sticks around in some way, shape, or form, that you can get a hold of them. Because sometimes what will happen is something will update on the web, and then it, quote unquote, breaks something on your website. So if that's the case, right, you've got to be in a position where someone is going to pick that up through measurement and maintenance and be able to at least let you know that something is wrong, so that you can, you know, make a decision as to whether you want to, you know, fix it yourself or pay someone to fix it up, whatever. Okay. All right. So that's it for Core Web Vitals. But I'm sure as we go on and on, I'll talk about it all the time because it's very important these days. Google put out many press releases on this, and anytime Google actually talks about something, it's usually important. Okay. All right, before we get into some COVID-specific content, let me just do a little bit of a refresh on the broad SEO signal categories, okay? The 4 categories are relevancy, authority, popularity, and technical, okay? Technical is basically what I just talked about, Core Web Vitals, your website code, things like that, okay? Relevancy is measured by keyword density, and it's all about how much your website relates to the keyword in question, okay? So if you're a DJ company and somebody searches for wedding DJ, well, that's, you know, you should be ranking for that because that's a highly relevant keyword term. Authority refers to aspects like, what's your domain? Is the keyword actually in your domain? How long have you owned that domain? Right? The length of time that a domain has been in operation is actually a pretty important thing, which is why you got this little sideline industry where every time somebody lets a domain go, there are a bunch of domain name leeches, I like to call them. Leeches that actually buy old domain names just so they can get the authority juice. Popularity is something that I really wanted to talk about today, though, because, all right, so anybody who's heard my SEO talks before will remember that I've talked about what was written in the Google thesis back in 1998, which became the basis for Google launching in 1999. There was backlinks, there was blogging, and there was directory placements, right? And it was basic back then. Google now is so much more than it was back then. But backlinks, for anybody who doesn't really know what a backlink is, very quickly, it's when there's a link to your site on someone else's site, right? And so that links back to your site, hence the term backlink, all right? It used to be massively, massively important in what's called popularity, all right? And Google's thesis was that the more popular your site is, the higher ranking it should be given, right? So in other words, if you're like, some motel on the edge of town where, you can rent a room by the hour or something like that, if you know what I'm saying, Atlantic City. That, if you've got a few backlinks and you're a motel like that, as opposed to something like Hilton Hotels, which has tens of thousands of backlinks because of the size of the chain and the number of hotels that they have and, the size of their company, et cetera, right? Obviously, if somebody does a little search for, Manhattan Hotel, then the Hilton Hotel is going to come up before the one, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, let's say, okay? So that's always been around. Popularity as an SEO signal category has obviously always been around, okay? But the backlinks are not as important as they were in the past. In fact, there have been studies, and I actually was studying all weekend on this. There have been studies out there that say that the backlink portion of popularity is down to about 10% of the weight, where it used to be 100%, right? What occupies popularity now as well is social and search, all right? So in other words, how much click juice, let's say, has your site obtained by being ranked in the search engine placements and then people actually navigating to them, okay? That is why you have to connect your site to Google Search Console, because without that, it becomes, and Google Analytics for that matter, because without those two things, it becomes very tough for Google to measure the search component of the popularity category, okay? And that's about 40 to 45%, right? And then there's social. So with Google Search Console, you can actually register the actual proper the official social media profiles for the website in question. And Google then goes into Facebook's API and Twitter's API and Instagram's API, measures the social aspect of that website. Social is also 40 to 45% of the popularity component in SEO signal categories. So now all of a sudden, people have just been focusing on backlinks, since the beginning of SEO time, let's say. But that's not the way to look at it. They're still important, right? You can still do a quick short-term boost by doing a bunch of backlinks, but backlinks themselves are never going to be as popular as they once were with respect to SEO strategy, okay? So make sure that you pay attention to the fact that your social media is getting indexed by Google and is part of your overall ranking formula. You must know that. So as part of your COVID SEO refresh, if you will, pay attention to what you're doing on social media. I mean, most DJs, yeah, sure, you all have them, especially the Instagrams and the Facebooks and everything like that, and some Twitters. But the thing is that you don't use them as you should be using them, okay? Most DJ companies, they'll do like pictures of gigs, and they'll do the traditional shout-outs like, hey, thanks to Bobby and Susie for allowing us to be part of your special day. And then you post a picture of Bobby and Susie. And that's great for word of mouth, but it's not enough anymore, all right? And we'll talk about that in my subsequent section. This SEO section, by the way, is going to be broadcast on Wednesday, and on Thursday, the social listening, lead generation with social listening, is going to be broadcast. So we'll save the social stuff for that hour or that 45 minutes, and get to it then. Okay. All right. So in my last 15 minutes here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some COVID strategies and then one big recommendation at the very end of this thing. Okay. All right. COVID strategies. Target coronavirus related keywords. Okay. You can actually, there are a number of different keyword planner tools out there. The main one being the free one that's actually given to you by Google AdWords, or is it Google Ads? I think they're calling it now. They changed their words too much, right? Now, here's the thing. You're not going to be able to compete against big government sites or major corporation sites for particular keywords. So try and use long tail keywords, all right, such as Philadelphia COVID wedding or something like that, right? Get into it a little bit, right? And then, of course, the more words you use in your keyword, you will actually filter down that much more, right? You'll avoid a lot of false positives. At the same time, you might filter so much that you have no results whatsoever. So, use long tail keywords, and if you're confused on how to work with keyword research and things like that, give me an email. I'll mention my email at the end of this thing. Target trending themes. All right, the smartest DJ companies that I've actually seen out there have done some good work with virtual wedding and live streaming. All right, target themes like that. What is selling? You got to remember, the whole thing about online is you don't necessarily try and create your own products and convince people to buy your new widget kind of thing. You figure out what widgets are actually selling, and then you do a better job of selling them, right? So figure out what the trends are. Are people doing virtual weddings? Are they doing live streaming? Are they doing drive-through graduations? Right? Targeting a new term like drive-through graduations, right? You got to remember, people during these times, there are new terms that will actually have come into existence, like terms that we never used before, right? So target trending themes, target new terms, right? Just see what's going on out there. Now, when you're doing your keyword research, if you're unsure as to what to search for, right, then try and stick in a term, let's say, and then see what similar terms come up. And that's something that comes up in the keyword planner and Google Ads all the time, right? Virtual DJ. Search for virtual DJ and then see what comes up, right? Maybe virtual wedding comes up as well. Look for those terms, look for those trending themes, and then using Google's ad keyword planner, right? Figure out what the search volume is. Remember, there's no point in trying to rank for a keyword term if there's nobody searching for it. So got to make sure that people are actually searching for it as well, okay? Repurpose old content. All right, this is a big one because you've got, you should have a bunch of content on your website already, okay? So if you already have that kind of content on your website, then there's nothing stopping you from sticking in an update. All right, a bunch of things are going to happen in an update. First of all, your users are going to think that you're actually paying attention to your website, and so they're going to respect you a little bit more. That's the organic stuff, right? But secondly, what it does is it updates the timestamp on your blog article, right? So you see Yahoo do this all the time with their stuff. They'll have an article, and then maybe they've got to update something, like maybe they made a mistake, or maybe they've got new information or something like that. And so you see Yahoo saying, they'll add a little section and saying updated, right? Well, that's the same thing with your own blog articles. Just do the same thing. Have a little section named updated, maybe adjust the font of the text to some sort of italics or something like that, and then type out your update. Like if you have an article on your, standard outdoor wedding or something like that, well then stick in an update on what you're doing as a company to react to COVID for outdoor weddings, right? Make it relevant, of course. You don't want to screw up the whole, initial purpose of the article. But if you do that, you're going to have fresh content for your users. The content itself will be, the date stamp will be updated. And you guys remember that I've actually talked about date stamp quite a bit. And of course, nobody ever listens to me. Nobody wants to write an article every week. You guys aren't, journalists, you're DJs. But I got to tell you, I'll remind you again, and this is, before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, writing a blog article once a week or once every 2 weeks is the fastest way to rank for SEO, okay? Now, COVID's going to go away, but what you might want to stick to is posting evergreen content, right? The evergreen content term is all about posting stuff with respect to, like clean living, all that kind of stuff. So, renewable energy, whatever you can do, like, who knows? Maybe if there's, I guess I can't really see DJ equipment being, green or anything like that. But if there's a way to highlight stuff like that, maybe that's not a bad idea. Evergreen content is something that is quite popular out there and gets read up along all the time. Okay. Now, Google My Business, right? Or Google Business as they call it. Okay. Update this thing all the time. Update the hours that you're open. Add in a section on COVID protocols. What are your protocols for people visiting the office? What are your protocols for your events, right? And adjust your attributes that exist all the way through Google My Business to be COVID specific, okay? Make sure that you're also updating your other listings as well. The Knot, Wedding Wire, Yelp, your Facebook page, Angie's List if you have it on there. What's that other one? Well, there's a bunch of them, right? I'm sure you guys know your listings better than I do. But update your listings as much as possible. Pay attention to them on a weekly basis, right? Not just necessarily because you want to give people fresh information regarding what you're doing about COVID, but you should be paying attention to them anyway because, of course, if somebody posts a bad review of some type, right? But that should be standard for you guys. You guys know that already. All right, so those are some COVID strategies that you can implement in today's day and age to, to adjust the SEO on your website, to position yourself to be available for, for better searches, things like that. Okay. My last recommendation is, right, most DJ companies have some sort of a supplier, anywhere between $500 to $1,500 a month, and it's SEO, it's marketing, it's this, it's that. Kind of like a digital marketing supplier, let's say, right? If you're ever going to switch, now is the time, right? Once you guys get back into doing gigs, you are going to be in a situation where you're not going to have time. You're not going to have time to evaluate what's happened in the past. You're not going to have the opportunity to evaluate new opportunities. Could you save value, for that $700 a month? Could you actually get better value, things like that. And what I would recommend is that if you're going to do anything to upgrade the quality of your digital marketing, your digital supplier, if you will, now's the time to do it. You've got basically until the end of January to do this. And then things are going to start to get busy again and you won't have time. And if you're unhappy with your supplier, you're going to be stuck with that supplier still. All right, so think about that. All right, I'm going to call it a day. I don't know how Jim and Steve are doing this, but if there's an opportunity for me to actually be live on Wednesday when this is going to be broadcast, I will be there live to answer questions live and direct right then and there. Okay, so I've made plans to react to whatever time Jim wants to put this on, and hopefully I'll get a chance to answer any questions that you guys have about this live and direct. Once again, my name is Jordan St. Jacques. I'm happy to continue my association with the DJ Expo, and I am actually looking really, really forward to going to the Hard Rock in 2021. I think it's going to be a great show. We've all had a really, really bad year, myself included, and I think it's time to really celebrate that the industry is going to come back, that the world is going to come back. And moving to the Hard Rock is a great decision. We're going to be downtown, just between you and me. We actually go downtown for dinner all the time. Even when we were at Harris, a bunch of close friends that are still in the business, actually, we go to a place called Angeloni's. So I would suggest, it's like a little restaurant in the heart of town, like off the boardwalk sort of thing. The food is out of control, though. So who knows? Maybe we'll see you there. Until August 2021, good luck. And like I said, tune in Wednesday when this is broadcast, and stay after, because I'm going to try and be there to answer any questions in a live format. Good luck to you all. Get ready for 2021. The world is coming back, and so is the DJ industry.